I am Dan Oakley. I run a company called Darkscape Consulting, and I was the Dark Skies Officer for the South Downs National Park. And I spent a lot of time and effort working towards a dark sky designation for the South Downs National Park, and that was achieved in 2016. It involved quite a lot. It's a very long process, and it involves a lot of different sources of evidence to show that you've got a dark sky park. But not only that, you've got to be able to show that people want to care for it and you've got the right policies in place. So it took a lot of work in getting those things in place before we even put an application together. And once we did, we were over the line and we were designated as a dark sky reserve. I think we were the 11th in the world at the time. There's only about 20 now. So we're still in a very elite group of places in the world that celebrate their skies in that way. Well, we're here in Iping Common. This is one of my favourite spots actually, because this is where I used to go with my telescope to take some images of the night sky. This is one of our 10 dark sky sites in the National Park, and if you came to Iping Common, you get some relatively good skies. The south is behind me, so the Milky Way will be nicely rising up, and you get a nice, good dark experience well away from the lights of Midhurst and particularly the south coast. So this is a really good place to come and do some stargazing. So the first thing, you've got to monitor your sky quality on a yearly basis. So this is important because you want to be able to track those long time changes in light pollution and make sure that people are doing the right things and the policies we've got are working correctly. The second thing is we want to have make sure keep those messages going. So that's why we have the Dark Skies Festival. We get out there and encourage people to come out and learn about dark skies and kind of embrace with darkness a bit more than they used to. And just keep on advocating dark skies, working with partners and working with government to try and get those legislation changes. We want to really protect our protecting landscapes. So there's work going on, and it involves time and money to do that, but it's all worth it when you see a starry sky. So when we first started doing it in 2016, it was purely an astronomical debate, but over the last 5-6 years we've noticed that the debate has now changed to light pollution being a much more stressor on ecological systems. So light has the same effect on humans as it does in wildlife. It stresses them out, they don't behave very well, the integrity of ecosystems goes down a bit. But also things like health and well-being, the way it affects our sleep patterns. We now know if you live that kind of shift kind of pattern where you go out in the night and you go to these shops and buy your chocolate at 11 o'clock at night, these things stress you out and they have an impact on your mental health. But lastly, it's all about how we kind of not just embrace with the darkness, but how we kind of like see ourselves with light and dark in these places, because there's a relationship to have both in cities and in places like this. We've got to really understand how light affects people and places, and that's really important because that's all about a sense of place, and the sense of place is why you come to understand why you're here under a clear sky. What we had to do, we had to actually use one of these little gadgets. This is a sky quality meter, an SQM for short, and these are pretty standard across the entire worldwide family of dark sky places. And basically what it is, it's just a little device that's got a little sensor in the top, and you point it to the sky at the zenith. And I have to put my hand over it because it's a bit too bright at the moment, but so I don't blow the sensor. But if you just press the button, you get a number, and that number tells you how bright it is. So we would expect here in Iping Common and much of the South Downs to record values of around 20.5, and that's the point where you can start to see the Milky Way. And that's important because it's a different experience from the urban setting where you just have constellations and stars. 20.5 is kind of where you see the Milky Way, where you get a sense of being something more special. But in addition to this, sky quality isn't just about the overhead quality, it's all about the lighting threats you get from the urban places like Midhurst and Portsmouth. So we have to make sure that we measure sky quality on the horizon as well, which is a little bit tricky to do. We tend to use that with cameras, but we also have got eyes in the sky. We've got satellites that give us very broad general landscape, nationwide kind of information on sky quality, and that kind of tells us where these dark sky areas are. So between those three, we use those, and many people use those kind of sources of evidence to put that together just to kind of keep a track on dark skies. But they're not foolproof. Unfortunately, the satellites up there at the moment doesn't record the blue wavelength of LED lights. We don't know if that's actually getting any worse than it is. It probably is, but we just can't measure it. So new satellites are being investigated now to do that. And of course, this little thing depends on how many people are willing to go out into the night to use it. And unfortunately, there's, apart from the hardy South Downs Rangers, there's not that many. The reserve is a partnership kind of model, and that's why you find a lot of the UK places are reserves. So that involves working with a lot of partners, mainly the street lighting guys, and we were fortunate that Hampshire County Council, East Sussex and West Sussex all went through a regional-wide street lighting upgrade at the time of our application. So they were really ahead of the ball for that, so that's really good value for them. But apart from that, we have to work with local councillors to make sure that they use our policies correctly, planning departments. But then we really have to look a lot more widely. So we kind of make sure we work with other protecting landscapes and other like-minded organisations in the UK, people like the Institution of Lighting Professionals, the Lighting Industry Association, the Society for Light of Lighting, the Commission for Dark Night Skies, lots of different places, and the CP area, of course, all want to do their bit for light pollution. And recently we've established a UK-wide partnership on dark skies, which the South Downs took the coordination of. And we were hoping to kind of pressure government into enacting new policies that would help reduce light pollution, but unfortunately their recent response wasn't that good. There's been quite a good changes, some really good ones. So more people are getting involved with it. So we have the Dark Sky Festival, which is always popular and gained loads of strength just before COVID. It's always really popular to see that on the South Downs programme. One of the other things we see is the quality of people taking pictures out in the Downs, and our recent astrophotography competition. The images of those are stunning, and they've been used worldwide. People are talking about them, so that's really good. In terms of light pollution, we are actually seeing a slow reduction in sky quality, but the sky quality is at the whim of a lot of things, mainly the weather and things like water vapour. We've noticed that across the UK and in other places around the world that there's been a slow loss in light pollution, and all those sites can't be the same. So we're pretty sure in the South Downs it's not from development, but it's probably something to do with the weather. So people are kind of thinking that maybe the higher levels of water vapour in the atmosphere, the position in the jet stream, things like that. They're all the things that have a kind of effect on sky quality as well. So from a protective point of view, the South Downs is still doing what they need to do to protect the night sky, but we still have these environmental factors that we can't take into account. So we've still got our Dark Skies Day. We're still going to have them for many, many years. So you'll still be out there to see the Milky Way. Really easy things. So there are some easy, really principles that you can follow to do whatever you can in lighting, and this applies from your own home to stadiums. So it's the same kind of principle. So the first thing you want to do is make sure the light is pointing downwards, because if the light goes up in the air, it does nothing, it costs you money. So it's better to have that light coming down. We always try to make sure that people have the right kind of colour light as well, so you want warm kind of temperatures. The warm light doesn't go so far in the air, so it doesn't create this massive sky blooming effects, which is another good thing. We want to make sure they're on good timers, so turn the light off when you don't need it and things like that. You want to make sure you just use the right amount of light for what you need. So you don't need to go to the shops and pull off the biggest light with the most amount of power to cook a sausage on your barbecue. You don't need that. You just need an appropriate level of light. So lots of easy things, but really just the first thing you can do is just make sure the light is pointing where you need it and not in your neighbours' faces or in the sky. And the other thing you can do is get out there and enjoy it. If you want to protect it, go for a walk, embrace the darkness, go see some stars. Any introduction of light into any kind of wildlife setting is going to have an impact, either as it's going to attract wildlife, things like moths to a flame, or it pushes them away because they're scared of the light. So you have this dynamic between being attracted to the light and not wanting to avoid it, and that has a lot of different effects on a whole different kind of wildlife altogether. So bats, for example, they'll stay clear. Some species of bats will stay clear of the light, but some will actually be attracted to it because of all the moths that are there. But the moths, unfortunately, they have a bad time of it, because I think there's the statistics to show that a good percent, maybe around 20% or so, moths that have an engagement with the light will die pretty quickly because they just get so knackered flying around that they're easily predated on. So that is one impact. And there's evidence to show that pollination rates are slowing where you've got more light pollution. There's also different evidences to show that even when you try to do your good thing for lighting and put red light corridors to protect the bats, that affects plant growth. It stunts the growth. So it's always introducing light has some effect, and it affects something else in a different way. So the best thing you can do is just not to have the light in the first place, but that's very tricky to do. But in places like this where you don't need light, then we try to want to keep these places nice and free for wildlife to enjoy, because they like a dark sky, but they just like it in a different way.